Toby Keith wasn't just a country music icon, he was the voice of small-town America. He sang about freedom, beer, boots, and back roads. But off-stage, he had another obsession few fans ever saw: cars. And not just any cars. We're talking classic muscle, lifted trucks, custom-built hot rods with patriotic paint jobs, and rare American icons that would make any collector jealous. Hidden behind the gates of his Oklahoma ranch was a garage that looked more like a tribute to horsepower and heritage than a celebrity toy room. From a Shelby GT 500 customized with Oklahoma pride, to a one-of-a-kind ride built as a tribute to beer for my horses, Toby's garage told a story as loud as his lyrics. What he built in private was powerful. What he kept hidden until now? It will absolutely blow your mind. This is the red, white, and blue car collection that defines a legend, and the legacy he left behind. Before the platinum albums, sold-out arenas, and patriotic anthems that defined a generation, Toby Keith was just a small-town Oklahoma kid with dirt on his boots and gasoline in his veins. Long before he ever held a guitar, he was helping his father turn wrenches in the driveway, learning the roar of a V8 before he ever learned a chord. Growing up around trucks, tractors, and wide-open roads, horsepower wasn't a hobby. It was a way of life. In interviews over the years, Toby never shied away from his automotive roots. He once said, "You give me a great truck and a tank of gas, and I'll show you a good time." That attitude bled into his music, into his stage presence, and eventually into his garage. But what most fans didn't realize was just how deep his obsession ran. As his music career skyrocketed in the early 2000s, with hits like "How Do You Like Me Now?" and courtesy of the red, white, and blue topping the charts, so did his collection of iron and steel. But he didn't just buy flashy sports cars or status symbols. Toby Keith was a purist. He chased after American-made muscle, classic power, and custom rigs that carried both grit and soul. He became a familiar face at NASCAR events, Barrett-Jackson auctions, and rural car shows. Photos show him laughing with race legends, checking under hoods, and sharing stories with mechanics like he was one of them, because he was. He even helped fund community car events in Oklahoma, showing up unannounced to sign autographs and rev engines. It was never about being flashy. It was about freedom, about power, about legacy. But while his public image was loud and proud, what sat inside his private garage was even louder. Because behind those locked barn doors and neon-lit vaults was a collection, built in secret, that most fans never even knew existed. And what was hidden inside? That's where this story truly begins. For years, Toby Keith's fans saw the trucks in his music videos, the tailgates in his lyrics, and assumed that was it. But they had no idea what was really hiding at his Oklahoma ranch. Because behind locked gates and steel doors, he'd been quietly building something incredible. A garage that looked more like a private museum of American horsepower. Insiders say the garage was split into multiple zones. One was filled with lifted trucks and rugged utility builds, vehicles that could survive an off-road adventure or a beer-fueled bonfire. Another space was almost reverent. Glowing neon signs, walls lined with Route 66 memorabilia, and polished concrete floors reflecting flawless chrome. It was clear this wasn't just storage, it was sacred ground. Leaked photos from fans who caught glimpses through open doors at local charity events started making their way online. You could make out the silhouettes of vintage Mustangs, tricked-out Camaros, and something that looked suspiciously like a prototype hot rod. But the real secrets? Those were deeper inside. Sources close to the family say Toby's garage wasn't just one building. It was multiple barns, climate-controlled units, and hidden vaults across his properties. Each vehicle carefully preserved, some wrapped in custom vinyl covers with his tour logos or patriotic designs. It's even rumored that his tour bus had a built-in tow rig just in case he wanted to bring one of his toys on the road. Themed rooms like Old West Muscle and Whiskey Alley were reportedly designed with custom decor to match the vehicles inside. One friend said, "It felt like stepping into a country song. Every wall, every car, every tool told a story." And while most stars show off their garages for fame or clout, Toby never did, because it wasn't about being seen. It was about preserving a part of himself. Toby Keith didn't just collect cars, he collected icons, and every vehicle in his garage had one thing in common: unapologetic American power. Start with the custom Ford F-250 Super Duty trucks, lifted to the sky, with chrome-plated suspensions, oversized tires, and dual exhausts that could wake up a county fair. He had multiple models, each more aggressive than the last. Some wrapped in camo, others airbrushed with stars, stripes, and the occasional eagle mid-screech. Then came the Shelby GT 500, a monster muscle car already built for speed. But in Toby's hands, it became a tribute to his roots. The interior was stitched with Oklahoma flag emblems, the seats bore his initials, and the sound system blasted his own hits. Insiders claim it was his favorite to drive when he wanted to feel the road breathe. Parked next to it? A 1967 Corvette Stingray, painted in fire engine red, with white racing stripes and a dash engraved with one of his lyrics, "Raise your glass if you feel like I do." But the most eye-catching builds were the custom hot rods. We're talking vintage Fords and Chevys turned into patriotic rockets. One had a bald eagle mural stretching across the hood. Another had tailpipes shaped like whiskey bottles. Every one of them built by hand-picked fabricators, often from local shops he personally supported. And unlike many collectors who simply write the checks, Toby got involved. He'd call builders to talk design, send in handwritten sketches, even pick paint colors himself. This wasn't just a hobby. It was an extension of his music, his personality, and his country pride. Because when you walked through Toby Keith's garage, you weren't just looking at vehicles, you were walking through his soul in steel. If there's one vehicle that fans have whispered about for years, but no one's ever truly seen, it's the mysterious "Beer for My Horses" build. Allegedly inspired by his chart-topping outlaw anthem with Willie Nelson, this wasn't just a car. It was a statement. A one-of-a-kind custom creation rumored to have been built in total secrecy, away from the public eye. And what little we know? It's pure Toby. According to sources close to the singer, the car was commissioned through a boutique hot rod shop in Texas. No public VIN records, no social media photos, no official unveil. Toby wanted it private, personal. Features allegedly included shotgun shell door handles, a whiskey decanter embedded in the center console, boot holster mounts under the dash, a custom interior stitched with outlaw lyrics and stars, bullet hole vinyl patterns etched into the paintwork, horse saddle leather trim for the seats and steering wheel. It was said to be painted matte black with aged bronze detailing, less show car, more rolling rebel. The car was never brought to SEMA, never listed in an auction, never posted in a single photo by Toby or his team. Only a few lucky insiders even claim to have seen it, and they say it was parked inside a barn, hidden behind old tour props and personal memorabilia. One source said it wasn't about impressing anyone. It was his own outlaw fantasy come to life. You could tell it meant something deep. And according to rumors, in the final years of his life, Toby took it out exactly once. Just him, a back road, and the sound of freedom. While most celebrities collect cars as trophies, Toby Keith collected them like stories, each one tied to a moment, a memory, or a message. To him, cars weren't just machines. They were chapters of a life well lived. And his garage? It didn't stop at muscle cars and hot rods. Insiders reveal Toby also had a love for oddball Americana. Vintage tractors, retired military vehicles, even a 1960s fire truck, rumored to have been used in Oklahoma parades. And then there were the motorcycles, mostly cruisers, all American-made. One Harley was custom painted with lyrics from American Soldier along the tank. But the most telling part of Toby's collection wasn't what he bought, it was what he gave away. He was known for surprising longtime crew members and friends with restored classics. One friend got a rebuilt '68 Chevy C10 after working with Toby for 20 years. Another received a Mustang Fastback with a signed glove box inscribed, "For the miles we rode together, on and off the road. TK." He even loaned cars for charity events, parades, and military homecomings, asking for no recognition. When he wasn't recording or touring, Toby often spent time at local car shows in Oklahoma. He'd pull up in an old-school truck. No entourage, no press, just a hat, a smile, and a cold drink. People didn't always recognize him at first. But once he popped the hood and started talking shop, it was clear. This man knew his builds. And through it all, his garage remained deeply personal. It was his retreat, his sanctuary. Because for Toby Keith, collecting cars wasn't about ego or attention, it was about preserving pieces of the American spirit and sharing them, one ride at a time. As Toby's health began to decline, his connection to his vehicles didn't fade. It grew deeper. In his final years, those cars weren't just collectibles. They were bridges between him and his fans, between him and the veterans he honored. He was often seen arriving at military charity events in his blacked-out Silverado, American flag grille shining under sunset skies. No driver, no staff, just Toby behind the wheel, shaking hands and handing out laughs. One veteran recalled Toby giving him a ride in a restored '68 Camaro, complete with a mounted American flag and a plaque on the dash that read, "Freedom ain't free, but rides like this help us remember." Other vehicles made special appearances at charity drives. A custom-painted F-150, wrapped in POW MIA graphics, was featured in multiple military convoy events across Oklahoma and Texas. Photos show Toby smiling wide behind the wheel, his cowboy hat tilted, one hand waving, the other gripping the wheel like he always had. As performances became rarer, so did these rides. But when he did take to the road, it meant something. In his final public cruise, Toby drove a simple, army green pickup, unmarked, unpolished, but unmistakably his. Locals say he rolled down the windows and waved to neighbors like it was any other Sunday. And when he passed, it was that truck that led his memorial procession. Surrounded by roaring bikes, classic cars, and red, white, and blue paint jobs, the convoy was more than a farewell. It was a tribute, a rolling statement that said everything his songs and cars ever did. Freedom, grit, gratitude. When news broke of Toby Keith's passing, fans across the country mourned a legend. But in Oklahoma, they didn't just mourn, they moved. A memorial procession unlike any other took shape. Not in silence, but in horsepower. Leading the line was Toby's personal F-150, draped in flags, its bed filled with flowers, boots, and handwritten notes from fans and veterans. Behind it followed a convoy of vehicles, many from his own collection, others loaned by close friends and local gearheads. Some were lifted trucks with flagpoles bolted to the bed. Others were vintage muscle, polished to perfection, engines rumbling like thunder on the horizon. One vehicle, a custom Mustang gifted to a Marine vet, had Toby's initials engraved in the wheel well. It rolled right behind the hearse. Spectators lined the streets, holding signs, waving flags, crying, saluting. One moment caught on video showed a group of bikers forming a V formation around the lead truck. They weren't hired. They just showed up. The entire route was filled with American color and steel, red, white, and built. This wasn't a quiet goodbye. It was loud, proud, raw, just like Toby would have wanted. And through the roar of exhausts, the flutter of flags, and the echo of his lyrics playing through Bluetooth speakers, you could feel it. Toby Keith didn't just leave behind a music legacy. He left behind a moving one, a final ride that reminded everyone of what he stood for and how much of him still rolls on. After Toby's passing, fans weren't just asking about his music. They started asking, what happens to the garage? Because what Toby built over decades wasn't just a car collection, it was a time capsule, a living tribute to American grit, gearhead culture, and one man's unfiltered personality. Each truck, muscle car, hot rod, and cruiser told a story. And now that story faced a fork in the road. Would it be preserved or packed away forever? Insiders close to the Keith family say there's quiet talk of a private museum, possibly near his Oklahoma hometown. A space where fans could walk through his garage, see the Beer for My Horses car up close, and feel the heartbeat of the man behind the music. One family friend said, Toby never wanted to be worshipped, but he did want his life to mean something. That garage? It's a map of who he was. There's also the possibility of the garage being kept in the family, maintained as a legacy only his children can access. Some vehicles have reportedly already been trailered off-site, either to be preserved, restored, or stored under lock and key. Toby's son, Steelen, has long been active in preserving his father's legacy, and rumor has it he may already be working on a full-scale plan to catalog the entire collection. But one thing is clear, the garage is not forgotten. Whether it becomes a public experience or remains a sacred family space, the legacy under that roof isn't going anywhere. Because Toby Keith didn't just leave behind songs, he left behind machines that roar with meaning, and they're not done telling his story. For Toby Keith, horsepower was never about horsepower. It was about freedom. He didn't care if a car could outrun the next one. He cared about what it stood for, about the feeling you got when a V8 engine rattled your chest, or when a bald eagle decal flashed in the sun as a custom hood rolled by. Each car in his garage had a message, spoken through chrome, steel, and leather. Messages like, be proud of where you came from, work hard, play louder, respect the road, and those who paved it for you. It wasn't just trucks and hot rods, it was philosophy on wheels. When he airbrushed the flag on a tailgate, it wasn't about politics. It was about presence, saying, I'm here, I'm proud, and I'll roll through life the only way I know how, wide open. Even the lesser-known vehicles, like his fleet of golf carts shaped like muscle cars or his beat-up ranch utility trucks, had character. They weren't props. They were tools of expression. His songs told stories in verses. But his cars? They told them in rumble, torque, and tire tracks. Toby Keith's garage wasn't about showing off wealth. It was about storing identity, about honoring the working man, the soldier, the underdog, and making every drive feel like a fist raised in the air. Because sometimes, the loudest thing you can say doesn't need words. Just a key in the ignition. Toby Keith didn't ride off into the sunset in silence. He went out the way he lived, loud, proud, and full throttle. His garage, now cloaked in silence and legacy, remains one of the most uniquely American collections ever assembled by a music legend. But more than that, it's a monument to what he stood for. He sang about the working class. He stood up for veterans. He poured himself into every lyric and every machine he drove. From F-250s wrapped in flag vinyl to the bullet-lined "Beer for My Horses" tribute build, Toby left his fingerprint on every spark plug and wheel well. Each ride was a rolling anthem, part country, part outlaw, all Toby. And now, even in his absence, those engines still echo. At car shows, in parades, in stories told by fans who saw him cruise through their small town in a truck they'd only heard about in songs. What Toby Keith built was more than a car collection. It was a reflection of America, the kind you don't find in museums or movies. You find it on country roads, in barn-built Chevys, in whiskey-scented garages with flags hanging from the rafters. So the next time you hear the roar of a classic engine on a back road, or see a custom Ford roll past with an eagle on the hood and a boot in the bed, you'll know he's still riding with us. Red, white, and built to last.